edit this together anyhow we like, make some different segments because I don't want to end. Okay. Now, I want you to give me an insight from what you've just said. I'm bringing on data scientists, data experts, people I know to talk about what they do, on the job in data to hopefully give folk a bit of an insight. And I've had some guests, and you're one of them. I would say like 100% of people that I speak to, both for doing this and for day to day, always are bringing up data quality, stewardship, governance. We need we need a minimized amount of data that's high quality so we can continue and create value and da 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 da. So it's just such a huge topic. Now, the insight I want from you, because people might not really know this, you talked about this kind of data cleaning team that are making sure the 8.5 billion transactions are good for Cardlytics delivering, on the business for the partners and so on and so forth. What size would that team have been? Like, how many FTEs would have been sat in this kind of making sure the data is at this base level so that Cardlytics can execute on the promise?
Yeah, it's a good question. It should be a two-part question. Is like, how big was it and how big should it have been, right? The reality is, I'll throw some terms out there, and I won't answer it specifically on the size. Over the past couple of years, I don't know the exact name, there's been this term called ML operations. And again, it is the team, and the team shouldn't be big. And I'm going to put this into three different buckets, right? To have an effective program, in my mind, you need three different skill sets. There's ML operations, the people who are bringing in, digesting, transforming the data, and making sure the quality is there. This does not need to be a big team. Like, I'm talking 10 people. It depends on the size of your company. It could be smaller, but they have to love that that's what they're doing. They're not necessarily data scientists, though the skill set is, it's still difficult to go wrangle all of that there. But what a data scientist doesn't want to have to deal with is data that's inaccurate, data that is not formatted correctly. Like, they want it all to come in and be ready. And so you'll find out that there's a skill set of people who love and enjoy and are really good at managing the flow of data in, transforming it, and getting it ready for the machine to take over, right? That you should have that team. I don't know the size. It will be dependent on it. At Cardlytics, it was 2 to 4 people, depending on how you want to put that classification together, right? But it is not a massive team. But that's what they do, and that's what they should be rewarded for. They should be heroes for what it is that they do. A lot of times, the data scientist ends up being the hero because what they're doing, right? But like, this is an extremely important skill set, and it should be sought after and rewarded, right? Then you have the data scientists. Once it's all set up for you inside the stores, they can do what they do. They go through and they go build the models. Like, they should be rewarded too, but there's a lot of highlight on that now, and there's not as much press on everything that somebody does to go get it ready. So that's the data scientist, right? On the tail end of that is, once somebody builds a model, once a data scientist builds the model, they're not exactly in love with it anymore, right? There needs to be somebody else to make sure that the model doesn't decay. And that's where you get into this data governance and all those other pieces out there, right? Is it still the right thing that this model is out there making decisions? Is it making as good as decisions as it was when it first went out there? Are there changes that should be made, right? When I think about data governance, it isn't just, are we utilizing data correctly and all of that, right? Like, are we getting the same outcomes that we should always get? That is a different skill set. Usually the person who's the data scientist isn't in love with being the data governance person or being that person to make sure that their models aren't decaying over time. So it's 3 distinct sets of skill sets that they all should work together for a business person who cares about, not only am I making good outcomes, but I'm consistently making good outcomes day over day, year over year. And whether I knew it or not, like, that's what was going on at Capital One. I just didn't realize it, and then I got away from it, and then you kind of could see these gaps. And now I'm starting to come back to, it's like, yeah, again, these 3 skill sets should always be together, right? Doesn't mean it has to be the same person. The ability for one person to do all 3 of those, extremely difficult. To be that hyped every single day about making sure that the data is coming in, it landed correctly, it's fresh, the quality's there, the formatting there, and that my model is going to go run, and my model has it. I'm like, that's difficult for one person to go do. It's not to say that one person can't go do it. It's just hard to have the same energy level across all 3 of those. Find people with the energy for the first one, the second one, and the third one, and put them into those roles.
So
That's
Craig,
the ideal situation in my mind.
I'm going to get a number from you. So these are the different disciplines and skill sets that make it perfect. For my audience, there will be lots of business folk, marketers who think their data sucks. There's no one responsible for data quality or data governance in their companies. I'm looking for a number from you so they can leave this video and say, a big data company has X number of people making that data good. Give me some data quality people, business. They can still be told to go away and shut up, or whatever response they get from their work. But talk to me, how big, when you left, let's make this easy then. When you left Cardlytics, how big was that group working on kind of data quality and making it fit for purpose?
Let's say 2 to 4 on the quality. On the data scientist side, probably in the 30 to 40 range. And on the governance side, it's probably 1 to 2. Right. So if you think about, again, where you're going to go make your money is on the data scientist side. Right. So that's going to have a much larger investment. It would be great to give ratios. I don't have good ratios there, but you're going to have more data scientists. It is not a large investment on the quality side and on the governance side, but it has to be made at some point. If you're a company size where you only have 1 or 2 data scientists, then the reality is then they have to wear the hat for the quality and they have to wear the hat on the governance piece. But once you reach that, you have 10 to 12 data scientists trying to go out and go do something. They're burning too much time on the data quality front. So you can actually free them up by hiring somebody on the data quality front. And they're probably making so many decisions that you want somebody on the governance front to make sure that the decisions are sound and continue to be sound.
Great. Thanks for taking us through that, Craig. And for the last few minutes, tell us what you're doing today.
Yeah, I've switched. So back to the industries, I've gone from, chemical and manufacturing to financial services to advertising. Now I'm in wildfire resilience, and it's just absolutely fascinating to go see what people are doing at some level in the US. And I know this is worldwide, but my scope is a little bit obviously on the US side. There's something called the wildland urban interface. People are building houses in the wildlands, right? So then wildfires have this risk of burning your house down. And so there's 2 types of modeling that I just love seeing and how people are putting it together. Where your house is has a certain level of risk associated with it, right? If you're up on a hill that is, constantly getting airflow, and embers are going to be floating through the air and hitting it, right? So there's a lot of people that are doing this location analysis. What is it about where my house is located, and is it more risk or less risk than somewhere else? As you can imagine, insurance companies would want to know this, right? Is your house just more at risk of having a wildfire come by than a different house, right? And then the second piece is, and this is probably true for other things, but it's not true for that many things. The risk of my house burning down has a lot to do with my neighbor's house. That's not true for floods. That's not true for hurricanes. That's not true for tornadoes, but it is true for wildfire. If your house catches on fire and those, built embers, like think about roofing and everything it takes to go build a house. If that floats through the air, like that stays hotter longer, and there's a chance it's going to burn down my house as well. Actually being able to look at someone's house and say, these are the risks associated with your house that you need to take care of, so the community's risk can get lower. So you build a community and it's out in the middle of the wild. It just has an inherent risk of where it's located, but you can still reduce the risk by looking at how the community's put together, how the houses were built. Don't keep your propane tank beside your house. Your house can survive a wildfire, right? Like embers floating through the air do not have to ignite your house if you take certain measures that are out there. And that's where I'm focused now. Very, very data driven on, again, limited resources. There's only so many dollars and time a homeowner or a resident's going to go do to your house. Being able to prescribe for them, these are the things that you should do to go reduce the risk for your individual house, which will then reduce the risk for the community. All data driven. But you got to have boots on the ground to go get the data. Like, you can't get some of this from the satellite photo. Like, you're not going to look for a whole bunch of dead debris that's sitting on the side of your house that the embers can go light up. You actually have to go look at it. And so being able to go build that system for these fire agencies and then use that data to go help inform what decisions we tell residents to go take it's just a perfect example for, again, this data-driven culture to go drive the change that we're looking for.
Strikes me that the engagement side must be super important here. I'm hearing you say there are individuals, they have things about their houses, but the risk can be kind of conditional upon next door.
Yep.
Therefore, the whole community needs to act at once to make this
Yep.
work most
And
effectively.
that's where we're starting to spend our time now as well, right? Which is, there are grant dollars, financial assistance out there to get people to go do things. But how do you get someone to say, yes? It almost comes back to, now you're back into a marketing mindset. I want someone to go take these, make these changes, but they have to do it, right? Like you at some point, it's their house, right? Like it's their residence. Yeah, quite frankly, it's their right to go do or not go do something, right? So how do you position it and present it in such a way that gets somebody motivated to go spend the time and the money? Even though you might be getting some financial assistance, it's never going to pay for it completely on its own. You still got to influence behaviors to go make this happen. And I think that's the next big leap for this whole, basically climate change, climate resilience, whatever you want to call it, right? Like at some point, individuals are going to have to take certain actions on their own to go improve resilience of their communities. And we want to help them go, know what to go do. But once you know what to go do, you actually got to go do it. And like, I think that's that next step of how do you get somebody to go do it, which is not that different than what a marketer is faced with today, right? Like, again, you're trying to influence a certain behavior. And I think we're starting to come full circle back into this. Like, now that we have the data, influencing the behavior is kind of the key thing. Now, the good news for us is we can still package that up a way to go help the governments and people with large budgets understand where the grant dollars should go. But at some point, you still always need to get a resident or the homeowner to go take the action.
Craig, if anyone's going to make them take the action, it's you, with all your direct marketing experience, and you're clearly a fountain of knowledge in these areas. Craig, we really have overrun by a factor of 2. So thank you for such an interesting conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is ML's Like Team Spirit.